You've heard the talk, and I bet you've thought about it too. Social Security is bankrupt. Wait a minute. Just whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay. Let's separate the facts from the fiction, and then let's talk about ways to maximize your Social Security benefits. So, Terry Wheeler, help me here. When we work, we pay into this system. Does that make it an entitlement?
Well, I guess it depends on your perspective. So good to talk to you again, Patrice. Social Security is technically an entitlement. That's the way the government looks at it, meaning it's a benefit that they're giving you, similar to if you're on getting payments because you're unemployed or you are on welfare or something of that nature. But most of us don't think of it as an entitlement. We pay into this in our entire lives. It should be a
Mhm.
right. It is ours. It is our money that they're investing. But unfortunately, that's not how the government looks at it. So they do have control over it and they do have the ability to change things. So that's unfortunately the way Social Security works.
Surprise, surprise. The government can change things.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So first, let's hit on a little bit of the history of Social Security because part of the problems with Social Security is what it's become. And this started back in about 1935 when Roosevelt signed into law Social Security. And if you think back to 1935 and you look at life expectancies, people only lived to about 61 to 65 years old. And this benefit didn't even start until age 65. So it was designed to supplement retirement, not be the primary source of retirement. And of course, the longer you live, the longer you're expected to live. So even back then, if you made it to 60, your life expectancy was going to be longer, and you might need Social Security for say 5 to 10 years. That was it. Now people are sometimes retiring and they'll live 40 years beyond when they retire. So Social Security has a lot more pressure on it. And now well over 60% of people, it's their primary source or a major source of their retirements. So Social Security has really become something that it was never intended to be. And that's part of why it has so much financial stress. So, fact or fiction, is Social Security going broke? Well, Social Security Administration has come out and they have admitted that yes, they are going broke, sort of. And what I mean by that is you've got really got income coming in and then you got the expenses going out. We have this group called the baby boomers that are now largely retired and are still retiring in droves. And we have a smaller population behind the baby boomers. So now we have less income coming in. And in about 2035, which is not too far away, the revenues are not going to be able to keep up with the expenditures for Social Security. Now, there's various estimates out there, but we have reserves to help deal with this problem. Problem is, those reserves are going to hit zero, estimated about 2036 or
Hmm.
37. So, get through all of the weeds and all the distractions, and where does that leave us? It's about a 24% shortfall for Social Security. So, they cannot meet their obligations as things go forward based on the current status of things. And that's where Social Security stands at this point. And this is by their own numbers right off the Social Security websites.
All right, now Social Security is basically a third rail when it comes to politics. No one is going to touch it and say, we are stopping this. And I even think cutting it, I mean, that would be almost political suicide.
Yeah, and how strong are the backbones of our
Oh, that's a whole
politicians?
nother podcast, my friend.
So so should they make changes and will they? I think you're absolutely right. It's two different things. So first of all, changes are going to have to be made. So it is going to happen. It's just a matter of what are the solutions. Now, one solution is simply to play with the numbers. They're already doing that. Now, what do I mean by that? Social Security goes up with inflation. Well, Social Security actually rises at a much slower pace than actual inflation. So they're diluting the value of what they give people already. So that's going to continue. And then, in addition to that, there are two solutions basically to this problem. One is raise
Mhm.
taxes, and that is a solution. So maybe Social Security taxes go up, and that covers the shortfall. So that means that the younger population, the working population, carries the burden of taking care of all the retirees. And again, the problem is the younger generation is much
Mhm.
smaller. But if they project that we're falling about 25% short, then instead of Social Security being, it's about 15.9%, I think, between the employer and the employee, that goes up 25%. So, you figure you're going to add another 4% or so, and we have 20% of our money is going to Social Security, 10% from the employee, 10% from the employer. That could be a solution. Another solution is cut benefits. This is where politics come in.
Mm.
So again, politics come in with the first solution too. But as far as cutting benefits, I think that most of us believe that Social Security will not be cut for those that have no time to react, and that's kind of the history of legislative changes for entitlements like this. Is if you can't act and change your habits to provide for yourself, meaning if you're already retired or perhaps maybe 50, 55, depending on the cutoff, you don't have time to act and change your retirement plan, they typically don't affect you as much. So it doesn't mean that this is a guarantee, meaning if you're on Social Security now, the chances of them cutting your benefits, I think, are relatively low. But that's just an opinion, because they could cut it by as much as 24%, but that would be devastating. So I don't think those that are older and in retirement and collecting Social Security are probably going to be affected that much. I think it's the younger generations. If you're 50 to 55, you're probably in that danger zone where we don't know if you'll be affected or not. If you're 55 and older, you're probably at the point where you're okay. So these are estimations, but ultimately it remains to be seen what they're going to do to fix this, but they're going to have to do something.
All right, well, let's assume, though, that, not too much changes. You're planning your retirement,
Okay.
you're looking at your Social Security. How can you maximize getting benefits?
Sure. So optimizing Social Security is a critical part of proper financial planning. The key is, how do you do that? Now,
Mhm.
if we have the benefit of a rear view mirror, it's easy. I mean, if we know exactly when you're going to pass away and when your spouse is going to pass away and what they're going to do with Social Security, then we can just mathematically calculate that.
You're
But
asking an awful lot there, Terry.
yeah, yeah, I don't possess that rear view mirror. I don't know anybody else who does either. So we need to do our best to estimate what is best for each client. So how do you do that? One of the first things we want to look at is life expectancies. And I'm not talking about life expectancies for the entire population. We want to do a custom life expectancy analysis for each individual and find out what their life expectancy is. So we've talked about this a little bit in previous episodes, but life expectancy, we use a analysis by a group called Halo. That's their product, and it basically is a science-based analysis as to what is your life expectancy. And they're looking at genetic history. So, do you have cancer in your history? Do you have longevity? I mean, if you have people lived a long life in your family, as far as parents and siblings, et cetera, and grandparents. Do you have heart disease? What are some of your key habits? Do you exercise? Do you smoke? So, in about 3 minutes, you do this analysis and you get a life expectancy report that is much more unique to you instead of the overall population. So, that's step one. Now, you have to do that for a couple. You have to do it for both spouses, because we're really looking at how to optimize it for the joint lives. And in Social Security, if somebody passes, then the surviving spouse gets the greater of the two Social Securities. So that goes into the calculation. So once we have life expectancy, we then need to look at, should we take it at early retirement, full retirement, or max? So usually around 70 to 70 and a half would be max. Social Security grows at 8% risk free while you're waiting. So typically, you want to wait at least until full retirement age. But for many people, we'll wait all the way till 70. Now, why? If you look at life expectancy, and let's say they're just normal life expectancies, so you're only making it to 85, 86. A normal life expectancy, if you wait till you're age 70, you're going to get more out of Social Security than before. Let's say your life expectancy is 90 or 95. It's not even close. You need to wait. Now, that's mathematical. Uh, But let's say you have a spouse that maybe they have a 79-year life expectancy, and then you have one that has a 95-year life expectancy. That's going to change the calculation based on what each person is getting. So I tend to get into the weeds sometimes, and I think I am, but ultimately, there's a lot that goes into this, but it's not that hard. And it all starts with your life expectancies. And then the last key component that is very important and often missed is
True.
your other resources. Meaning, mathematically, we might get more out of Social Security by waiting till 70. But if that's your only resource to retire and you want to maximize your healthy retirement years, so you're going to take it at 66, that might be the correct answer for you. So, lifestyle, maximizing your healthy retirement years is part of the equation, but you don't want to take it early when you have an IRA or 401k or other assets that we can be depleting to cover those early years of retirement if you have a long life expectancy. You want to wait for Social Security because that 8% risk free is not something I, as an advisor, can give you, nor any other advisor. To get 8% return, you got to take on some risk. And this is very low risk money from Social Security, and it's growing at 8%. So we want to maximize that benefit if we can.
Terry, quick question in here.
Yep.
Well, what is the attitude you find among your clients? Because I hate to say this, but some of my friends insist I'm going to take it at 62, or I have taken it at 62. It's my money and it's not going to be there in the future.
Yeah, and that's the big fear. Yeah, so the key is, if you ask people, do you think the government will print more money if they need it, or make a very tough
Hmm.
political decision and cut Social Security benefits? Which is more likely?
Oh, we're printing. We're printing, my dear.
And universally, that's the answer. So, the reality with Social Security is, can the government print more money to make it okay? They'll be able to. So how they get there from printing to get it into the Social Security budget is a different story, but they'll get there is our estimation. So I think Social Security is going to be there. I think your statement at the beginning that politically it's almost impossible to cut these benefits. I think that's very accurate. So I think your chances of having the stock market crash 50% are far greater than your chances of having the Social Security benefits struck. So take your 8% guaranteed growth. Um, it's really that simple, and I think the risk is extremely low that Social Security is going to be cut in a meaningful way, especially for those that are in the sprint to retirement right now.
Well, you mentioned other sources of income. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, so you've got to look at other resources, of course, for each person. So if you've got a portfolio, and we're seeing a smaller portion of the United States in our practice because we're typically managing portfolios of $1 to $5 million. And they are people who have saved. They're good at delayed gratification. They have other resources. So if you're in a situation where you don't have those resources, it's a little different analysis, and you might take it early because you want to maximize healthy years. But if you got other resources, we want to spend those down, and you can do that in a number of ways. So when you're looking at spending down your assets, we just have to look at how much are your needs, and what is that gap that we need to fill until Social Security kicks in. So it's just a matter of doing proper financial planning, but that's the money in a portfolio is not going to earn 8% risk free. So typically we're going to access that before Social Security.
How about I mean, pensions? Who has pensions anymore? Is there something that can supplement that or replace it?
Well, Social Security, yeah, Social Security is your pension for a lot of people, unfortunately. So back, if you go back just 30 years ago when I started into this practice, you had somewhere in
Oh,
the
my.
neighborhood of 3 of every 4 people had pensions. So Social Security was part of your retirement, but pensions were a bigger part. Now it's about 1 in 16 people. And what's interesting is a lot of our clients are either retired or in that sprint to retirement, and a bigger percentage of them have pensions. So they'll look at this and say, yeah, but I have a pension. And then I'll ask them, well, how many kids do you have? And I usually know already, like, how many of
Um,
them have pensions? And unless they're working for the government, very few of them have pensions. So the key is how do you create other income streams? Now we do a couple of concepts. So there's actually one patented strategy that a company called the Nexus is working with another company called North American, and they have a patented strategy. So if your Social Security benefits do get reduced,
Hmm.
you get a multiple on your gains and it's paid out to you. So that's an innovative strategy to deal with the risk of, hey, I hear you, Terry, but I still think Social Security is going down. I want protection. So that's one way to do it. Another concept we embrace very regularly for clients, we refer to as a private pension. And that is really doing just what your employer used to do. You take some of your money and you create a pension that you cannot outlive. And this is money that, along with Social Security, if it's structured right, hopefully you get raises along the way. But it's money that if you live till you're 95 or you make it to be a centennial and make it to 100, the money keeps on coming. And all we're doing is pooling risk. So when you look at the whole population, statistical life expectancies are about 85, 86 at this point. But your life expectancy, let's say it's 95.
Oh,
And I had a
wow.
client the other day where it was 95 and 93. And there was a
Well, that's a
52% chance they were going to live that long. So that means roughly a 75% chance that at least one of them is going to make it to about 94. 75% chance. So if you have a private pension that is designed to give you a fair shake and a fair return, if you pass away at 86, but you make it to 95, you're not getting a fair shake. You're getting far more. So you're capitalizing on longevity and you're making it a great investment. So private pensions is a great way to supplement Social Security. And I think it's a very important part of proper portfolio planning and definitely in maximizing your lifestyle. Uh, One thing I really like about the private pension approach, two things really. One is it frees you up to spend other assets during your healthy years. You know that your floor is no longer down here at Social Security, it's up here where you got Social Security and that private pension. So you can spend other assets and you're not worried about outliving them because as you get much older, you spend less. That's just the reality of how people live their lives. The second thing I like about the private pension is it's not like your traditional pension in the sense that a traditional pension ends when either you die or perhaps
true.
it's after your spouse dies. We have survivor's benefits typically. Private pensions are the same with one major exception. Let's say you get hit by a car and both of you pass away and you're only 75. Well, your cash value goes to your family. In a normal pension, it's gone. In this, it goes to your family, and you're typically getting better than bond like returns anyway. So, private pensions are an integral part, we think, of Social Security planning, but it's really part of your whole retirement income plan, so to speak.
Lots of good thoughts there. Is there something we haven't mentioned yet that you wanna make sure we do?
I think the biggest thing is just to a start with that longevity because it's so powerful, and then b do the math. So running through the math of calculations, you can actually calculate break even points, but you got to factor in the effects of inflation. So when people run analyses, a lot of times they forget that Social Security goes up when inflation goes up. That's a huge potential protection, and we've until recent times we've been living with extremely low inflation numbers. But back in the 70s, the early 70s to early 80s, your dollar was cut in half. So if you were living on a pension that was flat, your purchasing power went down by 50%. That devastates a retiree. So Social Security doesn't work like that. Now, it's not perfect, but it does have inflation adjustments that go up. So let's say, in 70s to the early 80s, your dollar got cut in half. With Social Security, maybe it got cut by 10 or 15% because inflation didn't quite keep up. But it did give you most of that adjustment. So that's part of why we want to keep Social Security and maximize it. I would say an average type situation, choosing Social Security at the wrong time versus optimizing can mean a $200,000 to $250,000 difference in your retirement journey. And it can be much more than that if your life expectancy is more than average. So
Alright,
it's a big deal to optimize Social Security.
so folks who have questions about optimizing and about Social Security and just planning in general, how can they reach you, Terry?
So you can just reach us through our website. So that's WERIA advisors.com, or just give us a call. Our direct line is 916-325-0130. And my email and everything's on the website, so just drop me a line. We're happy to answer any questions. We also have a couple tools on our website where you can actually go through and you can click a link in order to get a social security analysis, and you can get that life expectancy analysis. So start with the life expectancy analysis because you need that to conduct the social security, but go through both of them, and that can get you kind of some of the answers that you want to learn, and one of our advisors can reach out and walk you through the plans, so we can show you what it actually means. So you'll get a quick snapshot immediately on life expectancy, and then a full detailed report that covers even long-term care needs is included in that analysis.
What's not to like about that, right?
Yeah, hopefully it's a big number, and you live till 95 and you live healthy to 95, and then I always like to say I want to live long and die quickly, not the other way around. um,
I'm liking that sentiment.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yes,
it does give you
yes.
a realistic view of how long your money has to last, and that's very important. And Social Security is a big part of that equation.
All right. Well, listeners, make the most of your Social Security and follow this podcast for a lot more information. Share it with others too. I'm Patrice Sikora with Terry Wheeler, and thanks for being with us.